The scream tears through the quiet afternoon. Not a scream of pain, not exactly, but something raw, animalistic, born of pure, unadulterated shock and rage. It vibrates through the cheap plastic of the phone I hold, echoing faintly from somewhere vast and empty. I close my eyes for a brief second, just long enough to savor the sound, to picture it, the desolate stretch of highway, the sun beating down, my husband's face contorted, crimson with fury, the woman beside him probably frozen, aghast. My company car, a sleek, dark gray monument to my years of grinding work, sits dead under the unforgiving sky. Locked. Permanently from where I stand, miles and miles away. It's a cold sound, that scream, colder than any winter wind. It's the sound of a man losing control, losing everything, in the most humiliating way imaginable. And it is, I admit, the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Life, before the scream, was a symphony of predictable rhythms. Early mornings fueled by strong coffee and ambition, long days spent building something from the ground up. My company, my legacy. It wasn't just a job, it was a part of me, bone and sinew. I poured everything into it. Years of sleepless nights, calculated risks, relentless effort. And it paid off. The office hummed with purpose. The balance sheets glowed. And yes, the perks included the sleek, state-of-the-art vehicle that sat waiting in my driveway each morning. The company car. A symbol of success, a tool of the trade, meticulously maintained, equipped with every piece of technology imaginable for efficiency and security, including, I'd insisted, advanced GPS tracking and remote access controls. Because in my business, you couldn't afford blind spots. My husband, Mark, well, Mark was part of the predictable rhythm too. 10 years of marriage. Comfort. A shared history. He had his own career, less demanding than mine, allowing him certain flexibility I envied, but could never replicate. He was present. We had our routines, dinners, weekends, the easy familiarity that comes with a decade spent side by side. There wasn't grand romance, perhaps, but there was a quiet partnership. Or so I believed. I trusted him implicitly. Why wouldn't I? We were a unit. He knew how much the company meant to me, how hard I'd worked for it. He knew the car wasn't just metal and glass. It was an extension of that work, a vital asset. My desires were simple, really. To keep building my company, to enjoy the fruits of my labor, and to share a peaceful, stable life with the man I'd chosen. I wasn't naive. I knew marriage took work. But I thought we were doing the work. I thought we were okay. The car, sitting gleaming in the driveway, represented that okayness, that stability. It was a constant, reliable presence in a world of variables. The disruption came quietly at first, like a whisper on the wind. It was a Tuesday morning, earlier than usual. I had an important meeting out of town, a 4-hour drive I'd mapped out the night before. I walked to the garage, coffee mug in hand, my mind already racing through the day's agenda. The spot where the car should have been was empty. A flicker of confusion. Did I park it differently last night? No, habit was too ingrained. I checked the other spot. Even though I knew it was empty. Nothing. My heart gave a little stutter. Had it been stolen? Panic tried to claw its way up my throat. The car was insured, of course, but the disruption, the hassle, the potential security breach if sensitive documents were inside. I pulled out my phone, my fingers flying. I needed to call the police, the insurance company, Mark. Mark first. He might have seen something. No answer. Straight to voicemail. Strange. He usually had his phone glued to his hand. I tried again. Same result. Okay, deep breath. Don't panic. I remembered the tracking system. My company's software. I had the app on my personal phone, linked to all company assets, including the fleet vehicles. It took a few seconds for the app to load, for the GPS signals to ping the server and populate the map. It appeared, not in the next town over, not at a repair shop I hadn't been told about, but far, far away. Hours away. heading south on a major interstate. And it wasn't stopped. It was moving. Fast. My hands started to shake. Stolen? But why wouldn't the police have contacted me if it was reported? And how could it be moving with the ignition disabled? The system required a digital key tied to my company's network or a physical key, which should have been in my purse or Mark's possession if he'd needed it. A knot of cold dread tightened in my stomach. I zoomed in on the map. The highway was clear, unmistakable. The car wasn't parked. It was on a journey. I tried calling Mark again. Still voicemail. I sent a text. Where's the car?
Call me. Now.
No response. My mind raced, spinning through possibilities, discarding the mundane, settling on the unthinkable. Mark. Why would Mark take the car without telling me? Why would he be hours away, unreachable? The questions piled up, each one heavier than the last. I canceled my meeting. There was no way I could focus. I sat at the kitchen table, the coffee going cold, the map on my phone screen glowing accusingly. The little blue, representing my car, continued its relentless journey south. With Mark inside, with someone else. Hours passed like days. The moved across state lines. Still no word from Mark. My texts went unanswered. My calls went straight to voicemail. The silence from his end was deafening, filling the void where answers should have been with growing dread and suspicion. I started digging. Not in a frantic, desperate way, but with a cold, methodical precision that surprised me. If he wasn't answering, if the car was gone, something was terribly wrong. My professional instincts kicked in. Find the data. Follow the trail. I checked our joint credit card statements online. Recent activity. There were charges I didn't recognize. Small ones at first. A nice restaurant a couple of towns over. One I'd never been to.
A boutique hotel booking.
For 2 people. The date matched the time the car had left. My blood ran cold. 2 people. Not Mark traveling alone for some bizarre, secret reason. Mark. And someone else. The Mistress. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. It was a cliché, a storyline from a bad movie, not my life. Not Mark. Not us. But the evidence was piling up, cold, digital, undeniable. I dug deeper. I accessed our shared computer. His email. I hated myself for doing it, for invading his privacy, but the car, the lies, the silence. It felt like self-preservation at that point. It didn't take long. A folder he thought was hidden. Messages. Pictures. Names. The other woman. She was younger, blonde, someone I'd never met, never suspected. The messages were sickeningly sweet, full of plans, longing, promises. Promises of a future together. A future that I now realized with crushing certainty he planned to build on the wreckage of my life, using the resources I had built. The car. My car. My company's car. It wasn't just an asset anymore. It was a vehicle of his betrayal, a symbol of his deceit, carrying him and his mistress away on a romantic getaway, paid for, in part, by my hard work, my success. The car I relied on daily, the car that represented my independence, was being used to facilitate my humiliation. The pain hit me then, a physical blow that doubled me over. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the calculated deception, the blatant disrespect, the sheer audacity of using my car, my resource, to do it. It wasn't just a stolen kiss, it was a theft of dignity, a hijacking of my reality. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. The comfortable rhythm of our life was a carefully constructed facade, concealing this sordid secret. I sat there for a long time. The digital evidence of my ruined marriage spread across the screen. The messages blurring through tears, the tracking map showing the relentless progress of the car carrying my husband and the other woman further and further away from the life he was destroying. Hurt turned to anger, and anger solidified into something hard and cold. They were having their romantic road trip, courtesy of my company's fuel card and my company's car. They were driving away from me, literally and figuratively. They thought they were free, invisible, their secret safe on the open road. But they weren't invisible. I could see them. The map showed me exactly where they were. And I controlled the car. Not just the tracking, but the ignition, the locks, everything through the app on my phone. It was a fail-safe I'd put in place for theft or misuse, a layer of security for a valuable asset. I never in a million years thought I'd use it against my own husband. The idea formed slowly at first, a dark, tempting whisper in the back of my mind. Use the system.
Stop them.
Not just stop the car, but stop the trip, stop the fantasy they were living. Leave them stranded.
Exposed.
Vulnerable. Just as they had left me. It felt ruthless.
Cruel, even.
But the image of them driving happily in my car, laughing, planning their future while my world crumbled, fueled a cold fire in my gut. They had poisoned the well of my life. Why should they get to enjoy a picnic by the poison water? I watched the little blue. It was entering a particularly isolated stretch of highway, miles from any major town, between exits that looked far apart on the map. No gas stations, no hotels visible for miles around. It was the perfect spot. Maximum inconvenience, minimum immediate rescue. I checked the fuel level on the app. High enough to get them into trouble, but not so low they could claim they just ran out of gas. Enough to make getting help difficult. My finger hovered over the disable ignition and lock doors button on the app. This wasn't just locking a car. This was detonating my marriage, publicly, messily. There would be no taking it back. Once I pressed it, the car would be dead, a lifeless shell on the side of the road, and so would our life together. The thought brought a strange sense of clarity.
There was no salvaging this.
He had already destroyed it. All that was left was to control the fallout, to reclaim my power, my dignity. He had made his choice when he drove away with her in my car. Now it was my turn. I confirmed the car's location one last time. Interstate 40, mile marker 183. Nothing but empty fields and scrub brush around it on the satellite view.
Perfect.
My hand was steady now. The pain was still there, a dull ache beneath the icy resolve, but it no longer controlled me. I felt calm, focused, almost detached. This wasn't revenge. It was a necessary act of surgical removal. Excising the rot. I tapped the button. The app prompted for confirmation. Are you sure you want to disable ignition and lock doors for vehicle XYZ? This action is irreversible remotely. Yes, I was sure. More sure of this than I had been of anything in a long time. I confirmed. A small notification popped up instantly. Vehicle XYZ, ignition disabled and doors locked successfully. A ghost of a smile touched my lips. It was done. Then the phone rang.
Mark.
The caller ID flashed his name. I let it ring for a moment, composing myself. I took a slow, deep breath. Then I answered. Hello, Mark. My voice was level, devoid of emotion. What the hell, Sarah? His voice was strained, panicked. What did you do? What do you mean, Mark? What's wrong? I feigned ignorance, a cruel game I couldn't resist. The car.
It just stopped. Died.
I can't get it to start. The doors are locked and I can't unlock them. His voice was rising, fear turning into frantic frustration. I could hear her voice in the background, asking questions, sounding scared. Oh, the company car? That's strange, I said, my voice still calm, almost conversational. Where exactly are you? I don't know, somewhere on I-40. Miles from anywhere. What did you do?
Did you break it?
We have to get to Knoxville. Knoxville. Of course. Their romantic destination. The place he'd planned to take her in my car. Knoxville. I repeated, letting a little frost creep into my tone. Having a nice trip? A beat of silence. He must have heard something in my voice. The panic intensified. Sarah, what's going on?
What are you talking about?
There was something wrong with the car. I had to take it to get looked at. I was driving it to the dealership in Knoxville. Oh, Mark, please. I cut him off, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous pitch. Spare me the lies. I know where you are. I know who you're with. And I know you didn't take my company car to a dealership. You took it on a joyride with your mistress. The silence on the other end was absolute, deafening. I could practically feel his blood draining from his face. He was blindsided. He thought he was so clever, so discreet. He never imagined I'd find out, much less that I would have the means and the will to stop him dead in his tracks, literally. Then came the scream. That magnificent, guttural cry of a man realizing his elaborate deception had just exploded in his face, leaving him exposed and trapped. It was the sound of his world collapsing, of his control vanishing, of the consequences arriving with brutal speed.
You
did this? He stammered, the rage now laced with disbelief and fear. You locked the car?
You
stranded us. Yes, Mark, I said, my voice steady, delivering the final blow.
I did.
That car is a company asset. It's tracked. It's controlled by me. You misused it. You stole it, in a way, for your little adventure.
And now?
Now it's just a very expensive paperweight on the side of the highway. You and your mistress can figure out how to get yourselves home. It's not my problem anymore. I didn't wait for his response. I didn't need to hear the begging, the pleading, the inevitable attempts to turn it back on me. I had heard his scream. I had delivered my truth. I hung up the phone. The silence in my kitchen returned, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not the silence of dread and confusion, but the silence of finality. The silence after a storm has passed, leaving behind only the wreckage and the still air. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting me. The cold calm dissipated, replaced by a wave of nausea and exhaustion. I leaned my head against the cool kitchen cabinet, closing my eyes. It was over. The marriage was over. The deception was exposed. The car, that stupid, vital car, sat somewhere miles away, a monument to betrayal and a very public trap. I opened my eyes and looked at my phone screen. The map was still there. The little blue hadn't moved. It wouldn't. Not until I decided. There was a cold satisfaction in knowing they were stranded, exposed, their romantic getaway turned into a nightmare of their own making. He thought he was so smart, taking my car, using my resources for his infidelity. He never considered that those very resources were under my control. He thought he was driving away from his problems. He was driving straight into a cage I built. But the satisfaction was a thin veneer over a deep, aching sadness. 10 years.
Gone.
Reduced to a locked car on the side of the road, and a guttural scream echoing in my memory. The betrayal wasn't just about the other woman. It was about the fundamental dishonesty, the disrespect, the casual way he was willing to dismantle my life, our life, for a cheap thrill. I walked away from the phone, away from the map. The car could sit there for a while. Maybe the highway patrol would notice. Maybe they'd try to break into it. Good luck to them. The system was robust. The next steps were clear, though daunting.
Divorce.
Untangling our lives. Dealing with the fallout, the questions, the judgment. It wouldn't be easy. He would probably fight back, try to smear me, try to justify his actions. But I had the evidence. And I had the car, sitting there, undeniable proof of his transgression, a story waiting to be told. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a haze, cleaning the kitchen, folding laundry, doing the mundane tasks that grounded me while my world spun on its axis. Each simple action was an anchor, a reminder that life continued, that my life continued. I wasn't the victim cowering in the corner. I was the woman who took back control, who used her own power to confront the betrayal head-on. The car remained locked. I received a few more frantic texts from Mark, then silence. He was probably busy figuring out how to get back to civilization. Let him. He had chosen his path. Looking back, there were probably signs I missed, small fissures in the foundation I chose not to see. The late nights he couldn't explain, the sudden business trips that seemed a little too convenient, the subtle shift in affection. I had been so focused on building my empire, I hadn't paid enough attention to the kingdom within my own walls. That was a hard lesson. Trust, I realized, had to be earned and re-earned, not blindly given. And vigilance. even in the closest relationships, wasn't paranoia. It was a form of self-respect. The car was eventually retrieved, towed back to my city. It sat in a secure lot, still locked. A constant, silent testament. I saw Mark briefly when the lawyers were involved. He was pale, shaken, furious, but subdued. He tried to negotiate, to make excuses, but the car, waiting like a silent judge, spoke louder than any words. He had no leverage. He had used my resources to betray me, and I had used my control over those resources to dismantle his life. He lost more than just the car. He lost his illusion of control, his reputation, and eventually, in the settlement, a significant chunk of his own assets, compensating me for the emotional distress and the disruption he caused. The Mistress, I heard, left him shortly after being stranded on the highway. His carefully constructed fantasy had crumbled, leaving him with nothing. And me? I had my company. My car, returned to its rightful place, serviced and ready. It felt different driving it now. It wasn't just a tool or a symbol of success. It was a reminder of how close I came to being completely undone, and how, in the darkest moment, I found the strength and the means to fight back, to turn the tables. There's a quiet strength that comes from surviving something you thought would break you. A certainty that if you can navigate that kind of betrayal, that kind of pain, you can face anything. The scream still echoes sometimes, a phantom sound in quiet moments. But it no longer brings pain. It brings a sense of profound, cold peace. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. And if you've ever felt this way, tell me. I read all of them. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.